Today I'm in Glasgow and I meet someone who is an expert for sustainable transportation in cities. Now I'm gonna meet Philip at the Parklet. What's that?
The parklet is a relatively new expression. It tries to capture the idea of replacing what used to be car parking with something that actually makes urban life happening. There's a place for people to meet, for people to walk. In the summer you probably have even tables out here, and it really represents a new shift away from having streets only dedicated to the movement of vehicles, and as something that really celebrates urbanity, the coming together and hanging out with each other.
So I'm standing on the street, on the old street.
That's correct, or the parking of the old street.
Why is it so important that cities transform?
The majority of emissions globally occur in urban areas. So that's already in itself a pretty good reason for cities to become involved. And then on top there are certain sectors, transport above all, which are simply going into the wrong direction. So we are able, with urban development, with urban transport, to move away from business as usual.
What can be done by individuals?
It's an emergency. We need to do something right now, not in 2030, 2050 and so on. So in the next 12 months, a lot of us will have opportunities to replace physical motorized travel by virtual connectivity. What I mean is that maybe once, twice a week, instead of commuting into the office, particularly if you're commuting over long distances with your car or even by train, if you can replace it by working from home, working in your neighborhood office, that is a plus. Ask your employer to help you with this. For families, take your kids on a bike, walk them to school. It will do them good.
And in the long term?
We really need to think about a much bigger transformation. We need the new technologies in the transport space, electrification above all, and we need to redesign our city to make them more integrated, where the opportunities for working, for living, for shopping, all sorts of services are much closer to where the neighborhood actually is. And at the moment, a lot of European and global urbanization has actually dispersed us from each other. Working takes place here, shopping over there. This is where we live, with an enormous amount of daily movement required.
How can the financial industry help or contribute?
We have an enormous financing need for this transition. That is very clear and obvious. We need in public transport new financing models. We need for new urban mobility with all sorts of new configuration and mixes of service offers, the bundling of packages which are much more attractive for investors rather than little opportunities here and there. And we also need to build a new bridge out of the transport sector with the real estate sector and the broader urban planning and infrastructure investments.
Thanks for the clear guidance. And here we have the figures for the COP26. If you want to add a wish there.
I certainly do want to add a wish. Well, I have noted for nations or national governments to listen to cities. It's really cities with their populations, with their governments, with their institutions that often have a pretty good understanding how this transformation could work. And at the moment, unfortunately, local leaders and also civil society in cities isn't really integrated enough in the thinking at the national level. And urban transport is a perfect example of this. Cities know pretty much and very well what they need. They need to be enabled by national governments now.
Thank you.
Thank you.